when your day is long and the night is yours alone, when you're sure you've had enough of this life, well, hang on. Don't let yourself go, 'cause everybody cries, everybody hurts sometimes. Sometimes everything is wrong. Sometimes everything is wrong. Now it's time to sing along when your day is night alone. Hold on if you feel like letting go. Hold on, you think you've had too much of this life, well, hang on, 'cause everybody hurts. Take comfort in your friends. Everybody hurts. Don't throw your hand. Oh no. Don't throw your hand if you feel like you're alone. No, no, no. You're not alone. If you're on your own in this life, the days and nights are long. When you think you've had too much of this life, well, hang on. Well, everybody hurts. Sometimes everybody cries. Everybody hurts. Sometimes, and everybody hurts sometimes. So hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Hold on, hold on.
Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to see you here on this brisk morning of Veterans Day weekend. And for those of you who are sitting at home on the comfort of your couch, we welcome you too. First Unitarian Church is an urban community which welcomes all with love, supports learning and spiritual growth, serves our wider community, and works for justice, equity, and inclusion. And one way that we talk about and really want to live out talking about living with inclusion, is this. I would like to draw your attention to these signs we put up a couple weeks ago, which you may have just walked right on past, but they are different accommodations that our visitors need to know about. And a lot of these things you need to know about before you come in the sanctuary. At least it would be most helpful to know. So for example, if you're visiting and you don't know that we have non-gendered restrooms on the second floor, this will tell you that, but also, of course, the ushers and greeters would be happy to tell you too. But it also indicates that we have hearing devices and so forth, fidget items that might help you concentrate better up here in the VIP lounge. You are always welcome to get up during the service to obtain any of these things, but you might want to get them before you sit down. So please, if you know a visitor who perhaps has not seen this, they're all over the place. We'll try to make them bigger, maybe. But this is one way, just one small way that we're trying to show everybody that everyone is welcome. And another way that we seek to fulfill our mission of justice is to acknowledge that we do sit on the ancestral lands of the Adena, Hopewell, Miamia, and Shawnee peoples. Now, if you would like to learn more about different events or programs you hear about during the service, please contact us at member-care@firstuu.com. Now, let us all be present together. Our chalice lighter this morning on Veterans Day weekend is veteran Dick Miltner, who served in the Air Force. We light our chalice this morning with words from Pete Samajki. May this flame we light remind us that every one of us can bring the light of love to the world. May this clear flame be a symbol that every heart can burn bright with joy, peace, and harmony. May the wisdom of ages speak to us through this flame and stay in us. Every one of us can be a blessing to the world. Now please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our vision song. And the words will appear on the screen. Now, please stay standing. Those of you who are joining us by YouTube, you can say hi in the chat to everybody else. People here can say hello, but I am going to call you back together with a little ringy-ding-ding. So at this moment, please greet everyone around you. It's great to see so many people here today. Jera's way of calling us back together was much nicer, wasn't it? Now, if you, well, actually, you could have stayed standing. We're going to sing another hymn. Today's a joyful day. It's good to do lots of singing. And today, the hymn we're singing is number 160, Far Too Long by Fear Divided, in the blue hymnal.
No, in the gray hymnal.
Gray. Well, not the teal hymnal. I meant,
right.
Yeah,
right.
The big one.
I'm going to go ahead and sing one verse, the first verse, so that you can hear the song, because a lot of people may not know this particular hymn. And then we'll go and sing the first verse again for all three verses. I mean. Far too long by fear divided, may we have settled with the sword quarrels which should be decided by the reconciling word. Now feel free to join. Far too long by fear divided, we have settled with the sword quarrels which should be decided by the reconciling word. Now the nations are united, though as yet in name alone, and the distant goal is sighted, which the prophets' souls have shown. May at last we cease from warring, barriers of hate remove, and earth's riches freely sharing, found the dynasty of love.
The Rhino Who Swallowed a Storm by LeVar Burton and Suzanne Schaefer Bernardo. Illustrated by Courtney Fletcher. In the middle of the morning, Micah Mouse trembled under her blanket. A storm boomed outside her window. Rain crashed against the glass. Wind rattled the shutters. More than anything else, Micah was afraid of storms. A year before, a powerful hurricane had destroyed her home. "I'm scared, Papa," she said. "We are safe, Micah. The storm will pass soon," said Papa. "Would you like me to read you a story? I know just the one to help you feel better." Micah loved books, and Papa's gentle voice soothed in a way that made her forget all about the thunder. Papa opened the book and began. Long, long ago, before there were words, animals roamed in bountiful herds. Little Rhinoceros lived happy and free, exploring mountains and meadows, rivers and trees. His world was delightful and chock full of magic, until out of the blue, the magic turned tragic. A storm swept through the valley, turning bright sky to black. A flash flood came raging, no time to react. Lost in the thundering, no time for wondering, chaos and lightning, fury so frightening, earth quaking, him shaking, water rumbling, him tumbling, raggedy, jaggedy, senseless calamity. The storm crashed through his world and tore it apart, and took away everything dear to his heart. Rhino was stunned by the terrible scene, death and destruction all through the ravine. Enraged by the pain of such a great loss, Rhino acted without a thought to the cost. Rhino looked at his world all tattered and torn, stood out on the ledge, and swallowed the storm. Inside his belly, he felt the storm growing. Inside his head, he heard howling and blowing. Like a tornado, he spun as the storm raged inside, growing bigger and wider than wide. When he finally stopped, when he regained control, he was at the very bottom of a very deep hole. What to do? Rhino worried as rain dripped down his face. I'm lost and I'm lonely and in such a dark place. At just the right moment to comfort and guide him, a spider dropped down and dangled beside him. The world up above is shattered and gray, but it's where you belong, so you must find a way to let that storm out and move through your sorrow. You'll find many helpers on your road to tomorrow. Oh, but that hole was dreadfully deep, and the walls all around him were slippery steep. Rhino tried to climb out, but was losing all hope, when Kangaroo heard him and threw down a rope. Though Rhino was heavy from the weight of the storm, they towed him right up, got him safe, dry, and warm. We're strong and steady and always ready. When danger strikes, we hop to it. Fire or flood, snow or mud. When help is needed, we'll pull you through it. Watching those heroes do what they did best gave Rhino the strength to set off on his quest. The storm he was clutching made him buzzy and blurry. It kept his brain foggy and filled him with worry. Where do I go? What do I do? How will I ever make it through? After every dark night there comes a new day. Be kind, do your best, and you'll find your way. Up comes the sun, there are steps to complete. There isn't a map, just follow your feet. Rhino followed his feet to a wallowing spot, where he plopped on a rock and had a deep thought. I'm tired of catching the wind and the rain, exhausted from holding this anger and pain. We're all on the earth to learn and to grow, a wise old tortoise chimed in from below. Allowing yourself to start feeling your feelings is the very first step on the journey toward healing. It doesn't matter if you're fast or you're slow. If you want to move forward, just trust and let go. Rhino shook and shimmied and stomped in the muck, and just as he hoped, that storm came unstuck. At first, one little raindrop leaked out of his eye. Then Rhino let go and had a good cry. His tears formed a river that flowed to the sea, where a pod of whales swam happy and free. I do feel better, Rhino thought as he drifted. Then up swam a whale, and Rhino was lifted. If you ever feel blue, the whale said with a spout, remember to breathe Breathe in and breathe out. Sing your own song and take it deep, deep, deep. Then rise up with a joyful leap. As he floated home on a gentle wave, Rhino felt calm and strong and brave. His vision was clear, like the sky above, and he looked at his world through eyes filled with love. He thanked the kind spider and brave kangaroo and all the others who'd helped him through. He was glad to know that if he ever lost hope, they'd lend him a hand or throw him a rope. He had journeyed his journey a very long way to find the light in a world turned gray. He'd swallowed a storm with no thought to the cost. He'd felt all alone. He'd been tumbled and tossed. Life would bring changes and beginnings and ends, but he had faith in himself and faith in his friends. As they curled up together, he felt loved and protected, and he dreamed of a world that was safe and connected. He understood now it was love that mattered. Love could never be lost. Love could never be shattered. Papa closed the book and gave Micah a hug. "I know it was scary when our home was destroyed last winter," said Papa. "Bad things happen sometimes, and we can't always control that." "But we had lots of helpers," said Micah, "just like Rhino did." "That's right, little one," Papa said in his gentle way. "You're never really alone when bad things happen. There are family and friends, even people we don't know, who are always there to help us through tough times."
One of my heroes, Mr. Rogers, used to say that when bad things happen, and you were scared that the world was a terrible, horrible, evil place, that you should look for the helpers. I wonder, has anything bad ever happened to you? And if so, who helped you through that bad, scary, hard time?
As we prepare for our offering today, please remember that our Share the Plate recipient for November is UUSC, the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. Since 1941, UUSC has been partnering with people around the world to work for freedom and justice. There are lots of different ways to give to First Church. You can text the word GIVE to 513-717-7373. Or if you have access to our Breeze member system, you may click Give Now, or you can give online at firstuu.com. You can also write a check to First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati and mail it to 536 Linton Street, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45219. If you would like to give to UUSC for the Share the Plate collection, please put UUSC in the memo line of your check. But if this is the first time that you're visiting with us, please let the plate, virtual or otherwise, because now we do have a physical one again, let it pass you by, because your presence is gift enough to our church. As you listen to the offertory, please be aware that our flowers today are given by Beth Lutz in honor of their family's adoption day.
Take my mind and take my pain, like an empty bottle takes the rain, and heal, 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 heal. And take my past and take my sins, like an empty sail takes the wind, and heal, 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 and tell me some things last, and tell me some things last. Take my heart and take my hand, like an ocean takes the dirty sand, and heal, 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 and take my mind and take my pain, like an empty bottle takes the rain, and heal, 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 and tell me some things last, and tell me some things last, and tell me some things last, and tell me some things last.
Thank you to the house band for the beautiful music that they chose today, which goes so appropriately with our service theme. We're going to take a few minutes now to reflect on joys and sorrows of our community and our world. Instead of dropping stones in the water, as we often do, we're simply going to sit in silence as we contemplate a few things. You can meditate, pray, or simply take the time to breathe according to your own practices. You may close your eyes or not, as you wish. On this Veterans Day weekend, we acknowledge the veterans who have served in peacetime and in war, whether they returned from battle to acclaim or to disdain. These veterans have borne enormous burdens for our nation, and many bear scars that most of us cannot imagine. For their service, we give thanks. For the families of veterans who hold down the fort while their loved ones are deployed, and who support them when they return, we are grateful. For health professionals, counselors, and clergy who help people to heal physically, mentally, and spiritually, we give thanks. For peace workers who seek to prevent war and the moral injury, death, and destruction it causes, we offer our admiration. For innocent victims of war and unrest in Ukraine, Myanmar, Ethiopia, Haiti, Afghanistan, Iran, and elsewhere, we grieve. for members of the congregation who are suffering physically or emotionally, particularly those who are ill. We give our thoughts and good wishes. For a peaceful election, we give thanks. For the approaching holidays and the opportunity to be with family and friends, we rejoice. And for the blessing of being together today, we are grateful. Our guest minister today is the Reverend Rina Shere. Reverend Rina's ministerial call lies in community ministry and chaplaincy. She currently serves as a mental health chaplain at the Cleveland VA Medical Center. She provides spiritual care to veterans with a focus in serious mental illness, post-traumatic stress disorder, and moral injury. In 2021, Reverend Rina was awarded a fellowship to pursue a doctorate in ministry at Vanderbilt Divinity School, focused on mental health integrated chaplaincy. She also serves as the affiliated community minister with the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Cleveland. Reverend Rina lives in Shaker Heights, Ohio, with her husband. Her interests include the arts, politics, gardening, and sacred medicine. That's the official bio, though Rina modestly omitted the fact that she already has a PhD also. Rina has been a friend of mine for 20 years when our older sons were in preschool together. Other First Church members know Rina through UUJO, Unitarian Universalist Justice, Ohio, and they were delighted when she agreed to preach. Rina is creative, fun-loving, non-conventional, spiritual, and very positive. I'm sure she is a marvelous chaplain to veterans. And while she couldn't join us in person all the way from Cleveland, I know you will appreciate the insights she will share with us on moral injury ministry with veterans.
Good morning, First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati. My name is Reverend Rina Shere, and I'm very happy to be with you this Sunday after Veterans Day. I also want to thank Patty Kelly and Tim Krause for their assistance in making this worship service possible and allowing me to be here with you this morning. I live in Cleveland, Ohio, and I am a Unitarian Universalist minister. My ministerial call lies to work with those outside of the church walls, and currently I serve as a mental health chaplain at the Cleveland VA Hospital. Serving as a chaplain to veterans has helped me deepen my relationship and my understanding of what it means to serve those who have served our nation. And it has also helped me to gain a better understanding and a deeper relationship with my father, who was a veteran and who is now deceased. So this sermon is certainly about my ministry with veterans, but it is also a sermon about what propels me personally and how I find our Unitarian Universalist faith to be so life-saving for our veterans. I am a child of the 1960s and 70s, and I was not raised to be particularly patriotic by my family. My father had been drafted to serve in the Army in the Korean War, and it was a time in his life that he never spoke about in our family. He never shared stories about his time in Korea with me or my sister. I have a photo album of many, many pictures of him and the rest of his unit in Korea, but it was nothing that he ever wanted to personally talk about with us. He was wounded in Korea, and he also contracted malaria there. And I have a vivid memory of one time when we were young and he was sick with malaria again, and he was having terrible nightmares and talking about being trapped in his tank. So I know that this was a very distressing time in his life when he was in the military. And now that I'm a minister to soldiers with PTSD and moral injury and a lot of high anxiety and stress, I am pretty certain that my father probably suffered from PTSD and potentially moral injury as well. He had a deep mistrust of other people. He was more of an isolationist in his politics. He had a dependent relationship to alcohol. And all of the research between post-traumatic stress and substance use disorder is very well documented, those very, very strong links. My childhood was filled with TV images of the war in Vietnam, POWs, and Watergate. So I grew up with a distrust of our government, the military, and certainly the images of seeing the soldiers coming home from Vietnam filled with shame. And I'm wondering if some of the congregants here watched the really brilliant documentary series, The Vietnam War, by Lynn Novak and Ken Burns. And I'm hoping that some of the folks at First Unitarian in Cincinnati watched that. As a young adult, I protested military interventions in the Middle East. I was a member of Code Pink. I even took the oldest son to protest marches against the Gulf War. I had placed myself on the high moral ground of being against war, military intervention, and military funding. And it was easy for me to say that war is bad and fighting never solved any issues. And when I became a mother of 2 sons, my mantra was always, nobody ever wins in a war. In short, I didn't really take any opportunities to engage personally, relationally, with people who were in the military. So it was a very one-sided conversation. Now, after this call to ministry has led me to a midlife career change, I find myself working at the VA, working full-time with veterans. And I entered chaplaincy feeling sure that I wanted to focus on hospice care. And I did 3 rotations in hospice, and I loved it. And then I had my first rotation in our PTSD clinic, and I was really hooked. Here was where I found the most damaged hearts and minds, but also the most opportunity for transformation and for healing. I became more and more called to work with combat veterans from our PTSD clinic who were really struggling with feelings of disconnect between what they were trained to do as soldiers and their spiritual sense of right and wrong, their internal moral compass. They were really struggling with this misalignment of who they thought they were and how they were in the military. And this spiritual and emotional disconnect is called moral injury. And moral injury is different than post-traumatic stress. In post-traumatic stress, we find a lot of physiological responses, very difficult to fall asleep. There can be nightmares. There can be a lot of hypervigilance. There can be a lot of irritability and certainly a lot of depression. There can be a lot of depression, of course, with moral injury, but with moral injury, we find the emotions that are more linked to grief, to feelings of betrayal, to feelings of personal shame and guilt. And so my ministry is centered on creating a sacred space where someone is able to feel safe enough to tell their story and also to connect with and begin to think about the emotional and spiritual components of that story that bring distress due to this misalignment of who the person believes himself to be. Developing a trusting relationship with someone who has experienced trauma can be very difficult. When we talk about trauma-informed care, this means that we are acknowledging the entire history that a person is bringing into the room when we are meeting with them. This history really begins from the time that all of us are in utero. And we acknowledge all of the stressors that have happened in that veteran's life. And we use a frame of reference that it's what has happened to you. It is not what is wrong with you. It is what have been all the events of your life that have led you to be here now with me in this place of discovery. A veteran must be willing to be very vulnerable in order to trust someone with their story, with their most intimate thoughts and memories. Trust and empathy are what allow a veteran to feel they are truly being heard. So the first step is building this relationship of trust. And most importantly, as a chaplain, we must be able to listen without any sense of judgment, and to be able to show that not only in our words, but in our body language. And I have learned over my many years of working at the VA that people join the military for many, many different reasons. They join for patriotism, for honor. Sometimes they join because they are leaving a home and a community that is not safe, and they need somewhere else to be. In our nation's past history, the young men were drafted, and many young men entered the military not because they felt a call to it, but because they were forced to, men like my father. Since the draft ended in 1970, the military has become a place of refuge for many impoverished young people who are trying to escape the trauma in their own homes. When I'm at the hospital and I'm meeting a veteran for the first time, I'm never quite sure why they joined the military. And all of the veterans that I work with have some kind of mental health and trauma diagnosis, and most are also diagnosed with a substance use disorder. Again, the links between trauma and addiction are very, very strong. Many of the veterans that I work with happen to be Marines, medics who are in the Navy but attached to Marine deployments, or they're in the Army, because these are the men and women who are on the ground first. Our veterans are taught to be so self-sufficient, and they do not want to ask for help. And in particular, there's a real stigma around asking for help with mental health. Our veterans are trained to be the leaders and to carry out a mission, even at great personal cost to themselves. The veterans that I work with often come to me feeling suicidal. I meet many of them on our inpatient psychiatric unit, which is one of my units. Sometimes they're ready to talk because they have been down this path 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Other times they are not yet ready to be able to face any kind of trauma processing or spiritual recovery. When they are willing to share their story, as a chaplain, there are generally 2 kinds of questions that I am responding to. The first question is, how could a God allow what I have seen to happen? There cannot be a God who would allow this. They have lost the relationship that they once had with who they saw as God or what they understood to be holy and divine. It might be a trust simply in the goodness of humanity if they identify as spiritual or not religious. With moral injury, what they have lost and what they are searching for is always something that has to do with their own identity of who they were. And this identity has been shattered. The second question that I'm often called to respond to is, Chap, will God ever forgive me for what I did or what I didn't stop? They'll say, I've done some really bad things. And it's so interesting because they use that phrase, bad things. They may feel that they can no longer be trusted to be among other people. And it is not uncommon for me to hear a veteran say, if my family knew who I really was, they would not want me to be around. The majority of our veterans are Christian, and many have a concept of an all-powerful God. And the idea of God's judgment and the concepts of heaven and hell are very real to them. Those that identify as spiritual or not religious may simply feel that they no longer deserve to be a part of society. There are feelings of worthlessness and incredible loneliness and isolation. In either case, with either question, the veteran cannot process who they are now, because who they are now does not match up with who they were before their time in the military. So there's this profound disconnect of the self, and there has been no opportunity for any kind of integration for all of the different parts of their self. Our government has trained people how to kill. This is the training that you receive when you enter the military. This takes weeks and weeks of training and mind control. And military personnel are trained to become desensitized to another group of human beings. But when someone is discharged from the military, there's not a reconditioning of the mind and the body and the spirit. It is not unusual for a veteran to be back with his or her family or back in their community within 48 to 72 hours after their deployment. And the veteran has a profound sense of dislocation. They're no longer with their unit, with people that have an understanding of the mission. They've lost their purpose. They've lost all of their friendship and their sense of camaraderie, people who have my back. Readjustment is very, very difficult. And when they come to me, I hear their stories, these deep stories of why they drink to pass out because they can't fall asleep any other way, of why they would rather be shooting heroin, even though they know it's laced with fentanyl, because to remember faces and places is very painful for them. They tell me how at age 19, after being the captain of the football team and the class president, they suddenly find themselves at My Lai. They tell me how they have nightmares that a prisoner that they interrogated at Abu Ghraib is going to find them on the internet and come and do harm to their families here in America. They tell me of holding their battle buddy who has been fatally wounded and being with them in their last moments. They tell me about being in a jungle and being in the front of the line and becoming terrified and running to the back and labeling themselves a coward for the rest of their lives. And how all of these incidents have profoundly impacted not only their relationship with themselves, but with their families and with who God might be for them. I enter into what Sister Helen Prejean calls a dreadful intimacy with someone when they are recounting and when they're in that place where they're sharing the worst things they ever saw or did in their life, in their duty to protect citizens of the United States. So these are all examples of moral injury. And so in our work at the VA, how do we begin to allow them to imagine a possibility for moving forward? Because one thing that trauma does is it takes away our imagination, and it really gives people a tunnel vision. And so a big part of our job is helping them to regain some psychological and spiritual flexibility so they can imagine a different possibility for themselves and their relationships. So I work on an interdisciplinary team that is comprised of many, many medical professionals, psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers, occupational therapists, many, many different people. And I have the wonderful position in that I do not diagnose anyone with any kind of disorder or medical condition. I am here simply to accompany, to allow them to share their story, and to help them reconnect to positive coping spiritual practices. So what does that look like? So in weekly groups, we come together and we work with specific emotional themes. For example, hope, trust, acceptance, grief. And we use music, we use poetry, we use writing. We use a lot of different creative modalities to help veterans explore these emotional themes and how they might connect to their personal story. In fact, the hymn that we are singing at the end of our service today, Lean on Me, that is one of the songs that we work with, and we look at the lyrics when we're talking about the concept of trust. I also meet individually with veterans, and we look at what spiritual practices might be helpful for you. It could be prayer, it could be mindfulness, it could be walking meditation, walking prayer on the labyrinth for those who find it really difficult to sit still. It could be writing or painting, anything that allows them to begin to explore emotionally and spiritually who they are now and how we can get them back to who they want to be. What I bring to these men from my Unitarian Universalist faith is an unwavering belief that salvation and redemption is available to them from their God or from what they consider to be most holy or divine to them. Whatever their faith belief is, we start there and we move forward. We try to work on what might be a healthier view for them. I use the story of Kintsukuroi, the image that is on the order of service and the slide at the beginning of the service, this beautiful bowl that has been shot through with gold to fill the cracks. And we tell the story of how we came to have this art form. The story, the myth of a wealthy shogun many, many years ago, many centuries ago in Japan, who had this beautiful, simple but useful teacup that was his favorite teacup. And he would drink tea from this cup every day, and one day he dropped it and it was broken. And so he sent it out to be repaired, and it came back and it had been repaired with metal ligatures. And while the cup was in one piece, it was still leaking when he tried to drink tea out of it. So he had his cup back, but it wasn't able to be in the form that allowed him to use it as a teacup. So he sent it out to be repaired again. And the people who were repairing it were so impressed with this shogun's desire to keep this cup and to try to put it back together, that they used a gum resin from pine trees to seal the cracks so that it no longer leaked. But then they decided to use gold to illuminate the cracks so that everyone who saw the cup could see this once had been broken and now it is whole again. We can highlight and celebrate and see our cracks, our scars, as a thing of beauty. And this is a metaphor and an image that we use with our veterans. And it allows us to help them understand that we don't throw away things when they are broken. When something is broken, it doesn't mean that they are that it is no longer useful. We try to repair things because in doing so, we can become more valuable. And this is really the essence of acceptance, when we can accept ourselves as we are right now without avoiding the brokenness and moving to a place of hopefulness, what we might even call post-traumatic growth, when we are able to highlight how we have pieced ourselves back together and what that spiritual journey has looked like for each individual person. My Universalist theology guides me to offer our veterans the idea that they are not defined by their worst experience, the most painful moments of their life. No one is outside of our circle of love and compassion. It also means that we have the responsibility to be accountable for our actions. And it's very important, if amends need to be made, that we have the opportunity to make those amends. And this is the work of putting together a shattered identity into a place of wholeness that will never be the same as it was before the veteran was in combat, but can still be whole. As a people of faith, as Unitarian Universalists, we must acknowledge that our society, as a democracy, is part of creating this veteran in pain. And if we truly believe in the interconnectedness of all beings, then we must acknowledge that as citizens of this nation, we are all complicit in some way in our wars and in the conflict that we have. We are complicit in the trauma our military personnel endure, and in the society that has sanctioned poverty and violence, and the lack of support services for families and children that often propel our veterans, our young people, to join the military. This is what we call the economic draft. It has become commonplace for people to say to a veteran, "Thank you for your service." I am reticent to say this until I know the veteran. This can be a very, very loaded statement. For the Vietnam vet, it may remind them that when they returned home, they were shamed and shunned by so many people in American society. Or it may be very healing now that they were seen as fulfilling their duty, and they are finally being brought back into our society. For the veteran who fought in Iraq or Afghanistan, it can also go either way. They can be very proud of the service that they offered and the individual lives that they were able to better in some way. It can also be very difficult, particularly after we pulled out of Afghanistan, because they're questioning, what was it all for? This deep spiritual question. I know there are Unitarian Universalists who oppose U.S. military actions, and there are those who believe it is a necessity. And we still struggle with questions about our individual roles as citizens of a country that send young men and young women into combat, thinking that this will somehow create a permanent solution. But there really should be no argument about how we treat our veterans once they have returned to us. We have a responsibility to healing veterans spiritually, physically, and emotionally when they return to us. When we train human beings how to take a life, we are stepping into sacred territory. When we train soldiers how to be prepared to die, and their families, when we're preparing them to be ready for their loved one to die, we are really stepping into the province of the holy. When we talk about life and death, it is always a spiritual conversation. And as we work to reintegrate veterans who have come back to us terribly changed, we are faced with the task of integrating personally and as a society. What do these lives mean to us? What does the life of each veteran when they return, what does it mean to us as a people? The heart of my Unitarian Universalist faith calls me to work with others to create what we call the beloved community. Now, many of us, when we hear beloved community, we think of the work of Martin Luther King Jr. and our struggle to end racism. But the larger concept of beloved community is to be able to integrate our experiences as human beings into who we are, so that we are spiritually integrated as well. And a long-standing part of our faith tradition is to be able to embody our religious beliefs in community through our actions. This is the legacy of our religion. This religion calls me to create spaces in my daily life and in the lives of the veterans I serve and in our faith communities for healing and conversation. I must be able to respectfully discuss issues of war and the military with those I meet if I am able to live into the model of the free search for meaning that is another part of our heritage as Unitarian Universalists. My religion tells me that even if I question your desire or your decision to enter the military, I am responsible to help you with your spiritual healing when you return. How we interact together is what truly creates the beloved community. And we can all contribute to the beloved community by continuing to reflect on how our actions contribute to the healing of the world. A healed world can ultimately lead to peace. And we can hold on to this vision even when it seems very difficult to embody, even when it seems enormous to embody, because our faith gives us hope. Our faith gives us hope. And we lean on each other to create strength and resilience for this vision. And now I invite you to rise in body or spirit as you are able and to sing together hymn number 1021, Lean on Me. Really embodying the spirit of the verses and understanding that if you are a veteran or if you know a veteran who is seeking deeper healing, the chaplains at the Cincinnati VA are wonderful. I know many of them personally. And I encourage you to bring this healing message to all of the veterans who may be in your life today. And I thank you for being a part of this wonderful, beloved community. Peace to you.
Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow your pride. If I have things you need to borrow, for no one can fill those of your needs that you won't let show. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. If there is a load you have to bear that you can't carry, I'm right up the road. I'll share your load if you just call me. Call me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'd understand. We all need somebody to lean on. Just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'd understand. We all need somebody to lean on.
Our closing thoughts are from Olympia Brown. This poem is entitled The Great Lesson. We can never make the world safe by fighting. Every nation must learn that the people of all nations are children of God and must share the wealth of the world. You may say this is impracticable, far away, can never be accomplished, but it is the work we are appointed to do. Sometime, somehow, somewhere, we must teach this great lesson. And now we will extinguish our chalice by repeating the words on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. Now I have one announcement before the band plays us out, and that is regarding our Thanksgiving potluck next Sunday, November 20th. Traditionally, this has been a big dinner with turkeys cooking in the oven with the wonderful smell wafting throughout the whole church. But there's a concert Sunday afternoon, so we've had to change our plans somewhat. We are still having a Thanksgiving dinner. It will still be festive and wonderful, and we hope you all join us. But there is a sign-up out in the hall, in the lounge area. A lot of people have already signed up. We're having a simplified menu of turkey casseroles and wonderful salads, and the most important thing, pie. So please sign up if you haven't already. The other thing I wanted to let you know is we still are struggling with a dishwasher that isn't always working. So in order to facilitate cleanup, especially given our truncated time period, we are encouraging you to bring your own table service, meaning, plates and cups and silverware. If you can't, that's fine. We'll have paper. We're just trying to be kind to the earth and reduce the waste. But we will still have plenty of time. Now, we will have Reverend Lisa Presley here speaking with us in the service next week. She will be holding a question and answer period after the service, so the potluck won't start until 11:30, until that Q&A period is done before that. But we have from 11:30 to 1, which is plenty of time to relax and enjoy our pie and enjoy each other. So please do come. This will be a great event. And thank you for coming today.